If you have been on Nigerian Twitter or Nigerian social media space for the past few days, you would have noticed the discussion between Nepo baby versus Lapo baby. Very interesting discourse, and that's what I want to talk about today. But not about my take on my opinion of Nepo baby versus Lapo baby, but more so the idea of public discourse. So today I will be talking about the need for more spaces for public discourse within Nigeria, the need for nuances with public discourse, and to a certain degree, why too much public discourse is ruining Nigeria. Hello guys, welcome back to Madness in Nigeria Living, and I'm your host Gesi. So let's just start. Why is public discourse important to Nigeria? Not every Nigerian ethnicity had this, but the vast majority of Nigerian ethnicity grew up in rural areas that had a town square or a village square. And that square was important for the community to come together to have discussions. What those discussions are range from religious gathering to just a way to negotiate the ethical dynamic. And as a society, we always need a space to have public discussion. Public discourse is very important to renegotiate our ethical dynamics in a society. And since Nigeria as a society is now importing more foreign culture, there are kids who grew up on the internet, and a lot of people are now staying in suburban area wherein they don't interact with the outside world. It's very important for us to have public discourse. And that's the end of the podcast. But not so fast. I really can end the episode there because that's really the whole idea. It will be too much of a stretch, or too much of a stress, more like it, to focus on the tiny stories like, oh, why did the Nepo discourse happen? Why should we even bother about that? Because to some certain degrees, there are a lot of public discourse that I feel like, as an individual, I shouldn't bother about it. And if I'm true to myself, a lot of people shouldn't. But I do think public discussion is very important for us to have in Nigeria. One of the biggest problems I see online when I look at public discussion, I don't see it so much offline, although it happens offline. It's more prominent online, which is the lack of nuances. Conversation becomes very streamlined to is this or that. You are either in support of this or you are against that. And because we streamline our discourse to that, it does a lot of damage. What do I mean by it does a lot of damage? First things first, let's look at our political election, the last one. If you're a P2B supporter, the conversation becomes if in any way, shape or form, I communicate about the possible good policies that someone like Atiku or Tinubu propose, you automatically see me as an alien, and a lot of people won't follow you because of that. When we create an environment where nuances cannot be had and everybody have to pick a side, we inherently create an extreme case scenario. And I'm not going to say that's the root cause of tribalism in Nigeria. Not at all. Tribalism has always been here. But the algorithm, like Twitter, has pushed tribalism to be a little bit more extreme for younger generation, which is funny because a lot of this younger generation interact with people from the other tribes at a very young age thanks to the internet, yet we still see the opposite as the enemy. And why is that? I think for me, my conclusion is we lack proper places for public discourse. We no longer have village square. During COVID, during the lockdown, there was this social media, I think Clubhouse, was the name. But that social media created a platform for public discourse, at least while it lasted. When people get on those spaces and talk about different things, a lot of people feel they can give a more nuanced approach to public discussion. They have more nuanced take on NSAS protests. They have more nuanced take on Buhari. Whatsoever reason, you can give those nuanced discourse. It creates a sense of community, one. It comes as no surprise as to why, to be fair, there were a lot of reasons as to why NSAS happened in 2020. But it also comes as no surprise that the year wherein one of the biggest social media in Nigeria was the social media for public discourse, we could come together as a collective, the youth could come together as a collective and say, no, we don't like what the government is doing. It might be correlation, not causation, but irregardless, it doesn't matter because we see that public discourse have that benefit. The main problem with Twitter as our platform for public discourse is, first things first, the Twitter algorithm incentivizes behavior that are on the extreme edge of things. It's not okay to just say I like oranges. I have to also say I like oranges, and any person who don't like oranges should kill themselves. That's it. That's how the Twitter discourse must go. It's not enough for me to like orange. It must be that the moment I like orange, any person that doesn't like orange is in the wrong. And when we have those extremity being incentivized by algorithm, you can see why nuances get removed completely. To be fair, this particular episode, I was already making research on GMO's food, and the main reason I was looking onto it was I saw a trade of how bad GMOs is and everything why we don't need GMOs in Nigeria. And me, being the kind of person I am, I was like, I feel like this is leaning towards anti-GMO, and GMOs might not be that bad. Then I went to search for benefit of GMOs. The thing is, if you search for benefit of GMOs, you now start seeing people that are pro-GMOs. At the same time, it's like, there should be a balance point. I had to do extra work, extra research to see that, okay, GMOs in itself is a tool. It's a tool that have the benefit of increasing yield and might help solve food scarcity. But the problem with GMOs is they are developed by private institutions that are for profit, and for that reason they patent their seed. So it's not just as easy as introducing GMOs. It's also the fact that it has pros, it has cons, and before we introduce it to our country, we need to see the balance. We need to see a way it can work for our country. That is the kind of discourse that public discussion can have. Honestly speaking, if I didn't see that tweet, I wouldn't even read about GMOs. But the thing is, on that tweet, the argument was very either pro or against. The nuances, the midpoint was never being had. And that's why I feel like, as a society, we really need to introduce nuances to our public discourse. It's not enough that we can have public discourse. It's also important that we are able to have it with a more nuanced understanding. A typical example I can give for that is, let's say football. Pro Messi, pro Ronaldo, whosoever you are, if you see people that discuss it in person with the whole heated argument of Ronaldo, Messi, they can come to a conclusion that, oh, maybe Ronaldo is better at scoring this type of goal, maybe Messi is better at doing this kind of thing. That common ground is what fosters a sense of community. When you see guys that go to watch football in viewing center, even though they meet people that have opposing viewpoint, they have a sense of community. That guy is still their guy, not really their friend, but someone they can see stranded in the road one day and might be able to help. That's the importance of having spaces for public discourse. And since we are getting more and more online, it's also important for us to have nuances, because there's a tendency for online public discourse to experience context collapse. Context collapse is when something is written for a particular context, for a particular demographics, and the algorithm push it out to a different demographic, without the necessary context in which it started. One example of that was my former roommate. He tweeted something on Twitter, and I commented how much I'm going to bully him for it or something like that. And some few hours later, my account got banned because people reported that tweet of inciting bullying, which is fair. I know who I told it to understood I was joking, but it was out of context and I faced that. So it's very important here for us to have this nuanced conversation, because it creates a sense of community. That's one. Another thing with public discourse is it helps shape the collective imagination. One of the biggest struggle with uniting Nigeria as one country here is because we don't have shared identity. One, we are separated through tribal lines, we are separated through religious lines. But if we have these discussions, we start seeing the individual humans, and it's not just you are Igbo, you are Yoruba, you are Hausa, you are Muslim, you are Christian, you are pagan. We start seeing the humans. That's the beauty. When we start seeing the humans, we also start seeing a shared collective reality. A shared collective reality that can make us come together for a cause. And when we also start seeing that we can come together for a cause, it also inspires our imagination. Public discourse can inspire our imagination. One example of that would be this. If a plane crash happens here, no matter the country, the moment a plane crash happens, a lot of people are scared of planes. People cancel their flights. Why? Because every time a plane crash happens, the news carries it, everybody sees it, conversations start being had, which shapes the imagination for maybe my own plane will crash next. Statistically speaking, air travel is the safest means of travel. But if we start having public discourse around safety of planes, around the beautiful experience, it will start breeding the imagination for people that are already scared of planes to be less scared of it. That's the beauty. Public discussion with more nuanced layers can breed imagination. For change to happen in Nigeria, we need imagination. I do think one of the biggest problems with Nigerians here is a lack of imagination. We can't think for long-term solutions. We can't think for how we can change the system. All we can think of is how our own family can be blessed by God and separated from the struggles happening. But in reality, we need to change the system. One of the things I like about this Nepo discussion was someone was pointing out that every society have their own nepotism. But the difference between Iceland and Nigeria is, even if you are not from a Nepo family in Iceland, you have access to the basic amenities. You have access to basic Wi-Fi, basic electricity, basic schooling. You have access to free healthcare. But in Nigeria, this other system is not working. And that's why we start seeing the difference between like a Nepo baby and a normal person growing bigger and bigger. I feel like when that nuanced conversation is being had, when discourse like this is being had, it also helps prompt our collective imagination. Because we start saying it's not about tribal war, it's class war. The biggest problem is the elite in Nigeria are working for themselves, and the vast majority are just lost, confused. The importance of public discourse here is it unifies our imagination. It unifies us in a way that we can start seeing how can we change. This question would be asked, and not just being asked, we'll create a space for us to be able to communicate the way this change can happen. That's all I have to say. Public discourse is very important. As a country, we need to have way more public discussion for different things. Even though most of Nigeria public discourse is usually a man dating this, a woman dating this, those gender relationship talk. But I do think it's still important because we are negotiating the ethical lines. We are negotiating what is right, what is wrong, to better suit our current reality. And when we do conversations like that, it also breeds imagination. It also sows the seed for change to happen. Yeah, it sows the seed for change to happen. It's funny for me to mention seed because when I was reading on GMOs and the patenting of seed, it's actually funny that you buy the seed, you import the seed, you have your yield in Nigeria, but you can't plant the seed from the new plant. It's just funny that our current agricultural structure in Nigeria, first of all, does not have food sovereignty. There's no such thing as food sovereignty in Nigeria. How we make food, how the food it goes from farmers to the supermarket is not clear. A lot of the food being produced is not consumed by us, it's being exported out, and we import lower nutrient food. These are the things that public discourse can have, and to some certain degrees, one can say that's what I do on this podcast. I try to talk about things to help create a space for public discourse. And with that, I will say, if there's a topic you want me to talk about, comment down below. Someone else might talk about it, and me, I might be able to talk about it in another topic. We should create more awareness of the topic. We should make more people talk about it, and we should unify us as a people, one, but also unify our imagination. Because I would say one of the biggest killer to Nigeria's success is our lack of imagination. And it doesn't come from us being less intelligent. It comes from the fact that our culture has been structured in a way that our public discourse has been eliminated bit by bit to be I am pro-Muslims or I am against Muslims, I am pro-Igbo or I am against Igbo. No nuances, no way to see the balance. And one can say, how can you see the balance? How can you see the nuances? One simple one, let me just say one simple nuance is, when it comes to Islamic religion is not a monolith. There are multiple branches of Islam. How we have the Catholics, we have the Pentecostals, that's how we have the Sunni Muslims, or other type of Muslims. And when you understand that, you can also start seeing how like the terrorists is not the majority, it's the minority. It can help breed a collective mentality that it's not Christian versus Muslim. That's what I have to say. So that's it, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to Madness in Nigeria Living. If you like what I'm doing, like, comment. The support has been amazing so far. If you have a topic you want me to discuss, leave a comment down below. See you again. Bye.